Good evening. This is the meeting of the Conservation Commission on January 19th. Thank you very much. 2023, first meeting of the year. And we are off and running at 7:35. We'll come to order. Looks like we may have
Barbara.
one more member joining us, so we'll wait just a minute for Barbara to take a seat. I guess I can say while we wait that not seeing any members of the public here for comment and not having received any emails, and then there is no public comment tonight. Good evening, Barbara. So perhaps to move along, and we do have somewhat a packed agenda, so I'm going to try to keep tight time frames according to the agenda we laid out. The next item on the agenda is update on jumping worms. Kate, do you want to kick that off for us?
So perhaps,
Yes, so Tim was nice enough to go to the Ag Commission. We will be doing this event as the Conservation Commission as the main host, but we will be sharing it out with all of our various networks. And all that's left for us to do was to pick a date. I think that we should try and find one in March while people are planting their gardens, but before they've started purchasing anything. And it will consist of either one or two local experts on jumping worms, and it will be via Zoom. Are there any questions?
Perfect.
Okay, awesome.
Will it be recorded so people can watch it even if they don't watch it at that one moment?
Yes, it'll be recorded, and I would offer that recording to the Woodbridge channel, so maybe it can be something that can live on the town YouTube channel so other people can access it afterwards.
Kate, you may have said this, and I was distracted for a minute taking a note. Hosted virtually, who will do the hosting?
I will create a Zoom link, and we will share that out in advance, and so it'll be hosted via Zoom.
Okay.
And what was the exact date, did you say?
We're trying to decide
Oh,
in March.
March, I did get March.
Do you have any suggested dates?
posted virtually.
Not yet, but soon. If people have dates that absolutely don't work with them, for them, they should let me know. I envision it being on a weeknight.
Diane? She can't see you.
No, I know she can't. That's why I was raising my hand. Hi, Kate. I would just make a suggestion that we check with Town Hall to make sure there's no other events happening, because apparently this month on the 17th, multiple committees scheduled the same thing for the same day. So.
Is that right? We have the count has an events calendar, and all the commission meetings and so forth are there.
So we should just.
And so, Kate, I was going to look
Check
up the
against
date of the
that.
Ag meeting for you. They mentioned when I attended their meeting, because they were concerned about overlapping on that. But I think maybe checking the town events calendar, good reminder from Diane. That'll let us clear any events that are already scheduled.
Yeah, and if we have
Okay, I've added
a
that to the
flyer
list.
or a notification about it, we can send it around to all the other commissions so they don't double book themselves with our event.
Yeah.
I'm away the last week in March, not that that matters very much, but the other idea I have is that if we do it at a time we're around, maybe some of us could all watch it at the same place if we felt comfortable with that. Because we sort of have ideas that might inspire for our future.
Yeah. Just careful to avoid our quorum.
Yeah.
It's always a sticking point. Anything else for Kate on the jumping worms?
Great.
Okay, thank you, Kate. The next item was, I had a note, oh, sorry, I jumped ahead. Let me start again. Item number 3, the recognition of the Greenway. I had a second thought after the meeting last time. I know we had talked about, and there seemed to be a consensus around sending up to the state of Connecticut, the DEEP, the revised Greenway plan to have them make sure it's included. And my second thought was that, since that is not a typical repeating action of the commission, something we normally do, that really should have been motioned and agreed to, just to have that officially documented that we're going to do that.
I move that we seek approval from the state for the expansion of the Greenway system.
Um,
Did we have to finalize the plan?
so
Or recognition, is that the right
ju-
term? Recognition?
Yeah, I was going to suggest, and I didn't know whether to do that by amendment or not, but it hasn't been seconded, so maybe perhaps I can suggest you can withdraw your motion.
Okay.
In our case, our Greenway, the Woodbridge Greenway, is already recognized by the state. This is just to give them the extra information about the additional proposed sections that we are going to be creating over time. Diana, I did talk to the director of the program, who consulted with others up there, and they are finding that it's not, this is a future, this is
Work in progress.
a work in progress, thank you, a good term. And so, they're good with that. In fact, it's even built on in their initial application form. So I think, Paul, the action is to add, to send to the state, and it's really it's the Greenway Council, if you want to be specific, in the motion, the additions to the Greenway that the Conservation Commission has adopted. That's what I see right there. And so they can include it in the description of the Woodbridge Greenway that they keep.
Okay. I'd like to make an amendment to my motion that we forward our Greenway plan for recognition by the state to the State Greenway Commission, is it called?
You can just say as so stated.
Okay, as so stated.
The State Greenway Council.
Council.
I second.
Okay. So the motion is to send our additions to the State Greenway Council. Is there any discussion needed on that?
When do we plan to send it to them by?
As soon as we can. There was a question raised at the Board of Selectmen meeting about it, and so it is somewhat pending them.
Their approval?
What was the question?
Not the approval.
Told us that before.
They're not sure if they have to approve. I think they're seeking clarification, and I expect to get asked a question about that. And they, as I mentioned, our Greenway has already been approved by resolution by past Board of Selectmen. This is and that board, as far as I can tell, didn't approve the Greenway plan, nor is in their province to do that. It's in the province of the Conservation Commission to
Disapprove
develop,
its submission.
to adopt the Greenway plan, to develop it and adopt it. And the state doesn't approve the plan itself. The state merely approves the fact that it conforms to what a greenway is. And they have 4 criteria, and it has to meet one of the criteria. So there's no necessity for anyone to approve the plan beyond what we've done. The selectmen have raised a question, but I'd at least like them to resolve the issue before we send it off. So
But
What's the
what
issue
was
that
the
they're going to
question?
resolve?
Just whether or not they have to
whether
approve
they
it.
have to approve it, and I just don't want to step around them until they feel comfortable. So, and there's no urgencies on this. So,
then, should we wait until the Board of Selectmen, or do you want the approval, so that when they make,
no,
when they clarify their decision?
no, I think this group can act and say, and we can, because we're of a notion of mind to do it, and then I can just either get clear, just talk to the first selectman and clear it, or if it has to wait till the next meeting, then we'll wait till the next meeting of the selectmen.
Okay.
And that's before our next meeting, so I don't want to get into that loop. So if we're of a mind this is the right thing to do, then we should do it. Or, I'd just like it to be a motion. Other comments?
Is there a formal submission process to the state, or is it?
There, because it's a revision, there is no separate revision form. They asked me just to use the regular nomination form and just fill it in, per se. And what I'm gonna include some of the initial approval information that was submitted. Okay. So there being no further discussion, we'll call the motion. The motion is to, for the commission to send the expanded sections of the Greenway to the Connecticut Greenways Council for their inclusion in the state listing of the Greenway. All those in favor, please say aye. Thank
Aye.
you, Kate. Yeah, so we need a little verbal tonight.
Aye.
Anybody
Aye.
opposed? Nay?
No.
No, so it passes unanimously. Okay, thank you.
We should tell Kathy that Kate also is in.
Hopefully she heard that on the video, but it's a good note, and so that was unanimous, including Kate. Okay. Next up is the 2030 task force plan. I had a note written down from last meeting that someone wanted this on the agenda tonight to have discuss. We really didn't enumerate what the discussion was going to be. My best recollection is that it was Sharon who,
Oh, I don't think
Said
so.
okay, so if
No,
I
don't
have,
even- It's not even on my radar, so.
okay, then I will, it'll be a quick item, allow us to catch up a couple minutes. I will say that, and I don't have any official update on this, but I, just as I was walking around the building before the meeting, I got an email that I believe their 2030 task force is having another public information session. And it went on the public events calendar on January 30th at the New England Brewing Company back room. And that doesn't have any details here, but it will probably be, as there are other sessions where the consultants for the task force envisioning what the business district could look like.
This is, the task force is focused on the business district.
Yes.
They seem to be, yes.
Okay.
Economic development?
It's a different task force, Diana, actually. There's an economic development, not sure if it's council or commission. And then there's the 2030 task force. I think the Economic Development Council is interested in all of our current business owners and businesses and the current business environment, and trying to get new people right now. And I think the 2030 task force is trying to look a little longer view, and what should it look like? What should that district look like?
They have
And-
a lot of maps and a lot of data.
Sharon was at one of
It's
the
pretty
previous
interesting.
sessions.
I think
Yeah.
they have some thinking that would be helped by more input, but
And-
they have a lot of, it gives you a lot of food for thought.
And,
So
and
it's-
I did have one other piece of information that came in front of me, and I honestly don't remember where. I wish I could find it again. Was that the commission's, the intention of the 2030 task force was to get with some of the other commissions in the January, February timeframe. They are, additionally, they're also slated to go in front of the Board of Selectmen soon. So that's, so,
When did you say their next public input session was?
January 30th.
What time?
You know, I event details 6 to 8.
Okay, thank you.
Dress warmly if you go.
Yeah.
Well, it says back room, so maybe
Yeah,
it's
maybe
inside.
it was in
The
a
last
tent
one was
last
not
time and
inside.
It was cold.
It was cold. Okay.
Okay.
All right, good. Next up is the subdivision process Paul was starting to work on. And Paul, I guess I'll let you kick that off.
So I sent around just a list of, or I should say a process of what we might follow going forward. And the objective was to try to outline a process that we could all agree to and also have the building department recognize, and also town planning and zoning, so that we become a little bit better coordinated with regard to subdivisions. And again, the objective is to make sure that our input is recognized and is able to influence the ultimate recommendation and determination of open space in the subdivision. So obviously the process is a little bit dysfunctional at this point. So per our last meeting, we talked about developing a process so that we become notified, public becomes notified, we're able to work with the developer and hopefully come up with identify an area within the proposed subdivision that would be the best area for open space. So I had sent around an email, I guess last week or the week before, with regard to the steps that we would follow. And so I can read through it for those who don't have it in front of them, if you'd like, just kind of summarize it.
That'd be great.
So the first item in the process was the Conservation Commission would be notified of the subdivision. Like we talked about in our last meeting, there are other commissions within town that get notified of a subdivision as soon as the application is filed, and we would like to be one of those commissions so that we can start our work and be thoughtful about what we recommend ultimately. I think that's important. Thinking of the last 3 subdivisions that have come before town planning and zoning, I think we've put probably more thought in terms of the open space component and evaluating the subdivision altogether than perhaps they have. So maybe they could piggyback on some of the suggestions we have here. But again, the first thing would be to be notified when the other 2 commissions are notified of an upcoming subdivision. Number 2, we would invite and schedule the applicant to discuss and present their proposal to us, so we could basically discuss what some options might be for open space in the development. So hopefully we could get buy-in from the developer, so when we do go to planning and zoning, we're both in agreement. If we're not, that's fine too, but it would be nice to see if they might have something that would be conducive to what their plans are already. Number 3, which is, we've heard this for particularly the Manila Avenue and Merritt Avenue subdivisions. The neighbors don't feel that they've been notified or aware of it, and I know that there are processes within town. If, for instance, you're going to build something and you need a variance, that you notify your adjoining property neighbors. And so what I had here on this was, all neighboring property owners within 1,000 feet are notified by the applicant of the following: the proposed subdivision, the possibility of the open space, the date the applicant is going to present to the Conservation Commission, and that the neighbors can make comment at that meeting too, just so that, you know, we get everybody's thoughts on the table. So I think it's great that, you know, we have our thoughts of what the open space could be, and it's good to have the developers' input in terms of what they think would fit into their overall plans, but it would be also very helpful to know what the neighbors think, since those are the people that will be most affected by the subdivision.
So that's the purpose, to know what the neighbors think of the developer's proposal? That would be the purpose of this, number 3? Yeah.
It would be basically to get input from the neighbors, so that you know, for instance, on the Merritt Avenue subdivision, what we heard from some of the neighbors at the last meeting was that you know, having the trail area was nice, but it didn't really do any benefit. It didn't really help them out in terms of the open space.
Well, also, and furthermore, there was habitat that they knew about in terms of rabbits and fox and all sorts of other animals that they informed us were, you know, drinking and doing stuff in different parts that we might be interested in protecting.
Right, and I think it's important to have everybody's ideas out. You know, if we're going to have a discussion and hopefully come up with an idea for the open space that's acceptable to the Conservation Commission, the developer, and the neighbors, it would be, you know, certainly a great outcome. It'd be very compelling to present that information to the town planning and zoning in terms of this is what all the stakeholders have had suggested or agreed to. So then the Conservation Commission develops a recommendation for the open space, votes and submits a written recommendation to TP&Z, you know, similar to what we've done in the past. And then lastly, similar to what we just did a couple weeks ago, and I suggest 2 members just because, you know, I know in my business when I send somebody in to speak to a client, I think it's always good to have 2 people. So if somebody forgets to mention a point, there's somebody else who can chime in to help explain things too. But at least 2 members of the Conservation Commission would present the Conservation Commission's recommendation to TP&Z for open space in the subdivision at TP&Z's meeting held to discuss the subdivision. The representatives from the Conservation Commission would be able to explain and answer questions with regard to what our recommendation is and why we were making that recommendation, which is kind of what we did for the last meeting. There were questions in terms of why we were recommending something. And I think that would be helpful too. If you remember with the Manila Avenue subdivision, they didn't know why we were making a recommendation, so they didn't take our recommendation primarily, I think, because of that.
Paul,
So those are the 5 steps that I outlined.
Well, I think this is really good. I think we have to be careful in terms of having the neighbors' input. Our purview is conservation, not all their opinions about that they don't like this and they don't like that. I just think that we have to, I mean TP&Z
obviously
made it very clear to us where our boundaries of our authority and our input
Right.
really was helpful to them or not helpful to them. So I think we just need to be careful that when we ask the neighbors, community come, we let them know what we are and aren't capable of.
Sure. I mean, I think that's a valid point that, you know, we can only react to certain of their comments in terms of what our purview is, but you know, we might be able to come up with something that addresses several interests at once that might make everybody happier, which I think is a fine solution.
Yeah.
If we can address the conservation element of it, and that also is more desirable to the neighbors than some other solution that we could come up with that would also address the conservation element of it, then I think that probably makes sense too.
there's an opportunity, I did have a comment.
I think that opportunity might be now. I think
Sure.
Paul has,
Yep.
has gone through the, what he had initially drafted, and so I think we're ready to begin discussion on the various points. So go ahead, Kate.
Paul, thank you very much for this. I think it is a nice framework. I agree with 1, 2, 4, and 5. My reasoning about why I think that we should pull number 3 is because TP&Z, if a subdivision comes in and it follows the town's zoning regs, they are not required to hold a hearing on it, and they can make a decision at their next meeting, which means that the time to be able to get this done would not happen with this idea of notifying the neighbors. There's also a cost associated with that, like who's going to be paying to notify the neighbors. So I think that the other thing is that the town's received 2, the amount of subdivisions in the past, 10 years, we've gotten 3 recently, and previous to that, there had been none. But I think that we should be a little bit more nimble, and when we are notified that one comes in, then maybe that triggers a special meeting for us to discuss just that one topic. Because my fear is that if we leave it for whatever the next agenda is, if I'm not if I'm out, voted on the number 3 part, and it then involves wrangling a bunch of town residents, by the time all that happens, TP&Z could have already made a decision. That's it. Thank you.
So I'll tell you what I had in mind when I suggested that. If you were to, do work to your property or to your home, and it's anything that requires a variance, you're required to notify your neighbors, and that's kind of what I had in mind. They're probably, I don't know if 1,000 feet is the right threshold to use, but something where if you were going to do anything in your home that would require a variance, you would basically send a notice to your neighbors, and you'd send them a registered letter. And so, in this case, if it was 1,000 feet, my guess is it could be 5 people, 10 people maybe at the most. So I don't think it would be terribly burdensome. My thought was also including this is that we heard for both the Merritt Avenue subdivision and the Manila Avenue subdivision, is the neighbors didn't know that this was being discussed, and they didn't have an opportunity because they didn't know about it, that they could have provided us input on it.
Please clarify, they didn't know what was being discussed.
Oh, the open space issue. They also didn't know about the hearing too, so this hearing for the TP&Z hearing. So it just seemed like the communication with respect to the neighbors wasn't all that it could be.
Yeah.
Needs strengthening.
Right.
I'm not sure if that's our bailiwick necessarily, although I think it's an important piece. So I wonder if it's a recommendation that we send over to TP&Z or to the Board of Selectmen to consider. I from the perspective of getting information from the local, from the residents of a certain neighborhood where a subdivision is going to happen in reference to, ecosystems, wildlife, things that are there that are probably more along the line of the conservation purview. I think it's important to get that input from the residents, which I think we got when the commission took some site visits, which was very helpful. But I'm not sure when we start to get into I guess I would say I'm torn on this one. I think it's important that folks are notified. I think adequately notified is really what the is like the catch. And again, I don't think it's our responsibility to adequately notify residents of a subdivision. I think that falls within is it TP&Z or whoever?
Well, yeah, I can't even answer the question, how do the residents get notified?
There's probably a
If-
public notice that
if
goes in a
they
paper.
specifically
There is, that's
do.
what they
There
did
is-
last time.
There is, yeah.
But then you
I
have
also-
to
Is-
Haven
is that a- is
register
that a-
or something.
So that's
There's
just
another
in the
thing.
paper, general
would-
notification, or?
Legal notices.
There's
Well, I
a-
just got a notice as a abutter to something going on at the firehouse, so I got a letter,
That, because you're in a butter for,
the Fitzgerald property.
but I wonder for development, is it a butter, is it the same
Yeah,
thing?
Yeah,
It's
Is
the
it-
same
Is it
thing.
selective?
abutters.
So,
The people that
But if
abut
folks live
the
in an
piece of
area-
property, it's,
Yeah, if you
I don't
rent.
know who
Okay.
does it, but somebody is
The town.
required
So
to
the town-
Actually,
town-
no, it was, I just got this, it was from someone from Seymour, some land development
I
person.
believe it
Okay.
was, in my case, it was the surveyor
Yeah, the surveyor,
that sent the letter to
Yeah.
all of the,
yeah. So
whether
I
that's
want-
one of his requirements, I don't know. But
Yeah, I
that's who
think that
sent
is.
the letter to each neighbor who abutted the
Paul-
So
property.
maybe it's part of the process. I'm not married to any of these particular items. I just kind of thought through what would
Can I,
maybe make some of the objectives that people had and trying to address the things that people thought didn't work well.
where did,
Can I-
one follow-up, I'm sorry, Sharon, would you?
I just think we should put a site visit in there. That
Oh, yeah,
likely-
that's a good idea,
Likely
too.
that we'll have a
Mhm.
site visit,
Yeah.
and in that, we could welcome us, you know, you have to write down the notes of a site visit. I don't know if it's within our jurisdiction to say we could welcome input from local residents at that point during a site, like it did actually happen before.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But I
I-
don't know if that's okay to do.
go ahead, Diane.
Thank you. The other, since it seems like more recently DEI is an important goal and objective for the town overall. So with consideration of equity and inclusion of ongoing subdivision and potential projects, it would seem that the town has an opportunity to strengthen the communication to the surrounding neighbors of a potential project. So maybe that's the direction we can take
Yeah.
with the recommendation to TP&Z and Selectmen.
So that gives me the springboard to make my comment.
There we go.
Which is, you know, maybe a follow-up for today is, for a little more information gathering, is to make sure we understand specifically what the notification process is for subdivisions, not for, you know, in the wetlands or new building, you know,
Fine.
building on
Mhm.
additions. Because they may, we know our subdivision regulations are different, and I don't.
Maybe
wanna
there
make
is a
sure we-
process and we're not aware of it, right?
Yeah,
I'm
and
sure.
having reviewed those, if we know what they are and reviewing them, maybe we can think about what additions to those would be that would accomplish some of what we're trying to accomplish here.
Mhm.
Because I'm of some of the same mind that this seems to be outside our purview. It's the town that notifies TPZ that is, hearing mostly from the neighbors. But if we can get input on the open space part of it, then.
Well, I thought the input of the neighbors would be important because,
Yeah.
the open space could be used for just plain conservation, or it could be used for community garden or
Yeah,
some
Yeah,
recreational
some of the things
purpose.
we've talked about, a micro
Right.
park or.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
that, that it would be good to hear what the neighbors thought of it too, since
Okay.
most likely they would be the people to use it most.
Okay, all right.
So in summary, we all like 1, 2, 4, and 5, maybe add a comment about site visits and rethink the idea of whether neighbors, if it's our job to notify neighbors and figure out who in TP&Z is doing that, and if so, maybe we can help them strengthen that process.
Maybe I should do some homework and figure out what the current process is for subdivision, how the neighbors are notified, and see if we can figure out if there might be some tweaks to that we could suggest. Maybe it's not for us to make those tweaks, but maybe we could suggest that to the building department or town planning and zoning, that they incorporate some of these changes to make that process go better. Because
Yeah,
again, for both of those subdivisions that I mentioned, the big complaint from the neighbors were they didn't know about it.
yeah.
So is it like what Kate said, are we all sort of comfortable with 1, 2, 4, and 5 basically, and so Paul can just work on,
Well, I would like to go through them one at a time. We have a couple questions and comments.
Okay.
So I guess the answer is no, I'm not,
Okay, well,
not,
let's-
yeah, comfortable, but that's not.
but you wanna do that now
Barbara,
before you?
were you about to ask, say
What
something?
you just said is, I'll talk then.
Okay, all right.
I was going to ask about a specific.
So, starting at number one, that's the good news item. We did get agreement from the land use office that we will, to the best of their ability, notify us whenever a subdivision application is submitted to the town.
Good.
That request, so that's sort of a,
Takes away my question.
Is that at the same time that, TP&Z and inland wetlands are notified?
well, I can't say that, and I think it would be actually in advance of TPC. TPC, the way it seems to happen is, they don't necessarily see things until right before their meeting,
Okay.
where I think this would be a notification when the application's submitted.
Okay.
Um,
I thought it was interesting that TP&Z hadn't been down to the neighborhood to look at the land where the subdivision was going to be, but we had,
Yeah,
which was kind of ironic, I thought.
Tim, who
Since-
did you say would
Land
notify
use.
us?
Chris Sullivan.
the land use office.
Land use, okay.
Yep, that is interesting. They don't seem to be of that.
Seems
Right,
like
yeah.
that they should maybe look at their process too. That might be an important thing for them to look at in terms of visiting the site
Yeah.
too. I guess that's not our purview, but
No.
just an observation.
I think, there's having not the comment before that, we haven't had very many subdivisions, and maybe it just didn't dawn on them that that's something they should probably do in the case of a subdivision, so hopefully they'll learn on that. That was the allocated time, but let's see if we can get through the 5 items so that at least Paul can, there's other
Go for it.
things, try to quickly go through. So the next one, invite and schedule the applicant to discuss. And in this, this makes sense, this is what we've been doing more or less, maybe, not to the, having the applicant appear. I would assume that there would be cases where the applicant was gonna propose 10% or more, and the commission will be very happy with that, right? And
Well, I
some
still
of the
think
rest
we
of this would be obviated, or?
No, because I
No.
think they might do 10% that's already wetlands like they did last time.
Well, I meant after we
Or that it might be different.
after we examine it, that we were happy with what
I
they're
see if we,
proposing. I mean, I suppose that's, in theory, that's possible.
I mean, I guess if they came in and they had already proposed something that we were agreeable to, we could say, we like your plan and we think we're gonna recommend it also.
Yeah, it
no.
wouldn't happen in that order. They would propose it, we'd look at it, and they say, oh, this is good, and we would.
Right, like
Everybody would be happy.
like the Rimmon Road
The Rimmon Road
subdivision.
was pretty much that case.
Mhm.
So, I don't know, as you're in the process, we may have to have an escape path.
well, we
for
can waive
where
that
we're happy.
request if
We're-
we feel like, if we can waive the request if we feel like it's
Sure.
satisfied.
I mean, it is an invitation, it isn't,
Yeah,
they aren't
yeah.
obligated to do it, but if we don't need to invite them, we don't need to.
Um,
It's always nice to know them.
So let me, okay, so that was, I don't know if I had another comment on number 2. Number 4,
Straightforward.
so in this, the way it's worded, Paul, the Conservation Commission develops a recommendation for open space in the subdivision. I assume that means that the recommendation is vis-à-vis the proposal from the applicant.
I don't know what that means. What do you mean by
Well,
that?
it's the applicant, according to subdivision regulation, the applicant is supposed to propose 10% open space. Correct? That's how it reads.
correct.
And then we're looking at it, and we're trying to evaluate that proposal, make sure it's not all wetlands. We're trying to develop some information to help TBZ with their thinking and their process. And so it's, the recommendations we make are gonna be regarding the proposal that's made by the applicant.
No,
No, I wouldn't say that. Would think that, we've listened to the neighbors' input, we listened to the input from the developer in terms of what they would suggest. Then we develop our recommendation in terms of what we think, taking the regulations into account in terms of what the open space should, the characteristics of the open space, plus what the input we heard from the developer in terms of what they would recommend that would fit best with their plan, and what the neighbors think would be most useful for their neighborhood in terms of the open space. Then we come up with our own recommendation, which could be what the developer said, could be what the neighbors suggested, or it could be something entirely different. But it would be what our recommendation was at that point.
But
So-
the goal would be to get in concert with the applicant and to.
or have
to-
the applicant
Right.
get in concert with us.
Correct.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I mean,
well, that's saying the same thing.
so
No,
I guess
it's
To
I
have
just,
that dialogue
Tim,
and to,
it's
at the end of the day, agree
Come to
on
an
what.
agreement with.
No.
Come to an agreement.
no, just to clarify what I meant by this, and I'm
Yeah.
open to other people's thoughts and
Yeah.
suggestions on it, is we don't necessarily have to come to agreement with what the applicant wanted. It would be helpful, though, to hear what their suggestions are, what they would recommend, what they would propose, and then we come up with our recommendation in terms of what we think is best, which could be the same thing that they suggested or not, but I don't think, I mean, obviously, we've invited them to talk to us about what they would suggest and what they think would fit well in their overall plan that they, at least as the plan as it stands then. And then, so we can take all these factors into account and make our recommendation.
Yeah.
So it could be different.
I think ultimately what we're trying to do when we develop our recommendations is what is in the best interest of the town.
Mhm.
And the land,
now
And the environment.
the town, the people, the land, the environment now and into the future.
Mhm.
Whereas I think a developer will, that is their job. They will make their recommendation what is best, in best interest to their project. So, in a perfect world, we line up, the stars align on everything.
Right.
And if not, we,
And-
we continue to make our recommendation within whatever is the best interest of the town.
Right, so for instance, on the Rimmon Road subdivision, we looked at that and said, wow, this is great. I mean, look at all the open space we're getting, and, we talked about being able to connect a trail, and they were open to
Yeah. So-
include our
and-
recommendation,
And that
and,
would be the ideal, where we can work with the developer to get it to where we all
Right, but
Are-
I
are in
take
agreement.
Diana,
That
what
is the
Diana says
ideal,
seriously,
But it isn't necessarily the.
their agenda is an economic one, and ours is an environmental one, and it
Right.
may overlap and it may not, but we're not beholden to their economic idea.
But our first objective is not to develop our own recommendation. It's
No, our first
it's-
is to develop our own recommendation.
Well,
That's-
is
that's-
to have a recommendation that the commission feels they're comfortable with
Yeah.
and is in best interest of
Yeah.
the town. I think ultimately,
Right.
if you don't have to develop a recommendation because what is proposed makes
sense.
the most
I
sense.
think we're saying the same thing.
and it's consistent
we-
with what the subdivision regulations call for in terms of what the open space should be,
Yeah.
what the characteristics should be.
But I
Right.
think if it comes, we don't want to live in a world of disillusionment. If the recommendations, if the proposed 10% doesn't align with what we're trying to do, then we need the option
Yep.
and the ability to develop our own recommendation.
So not to be sarcastic, but say we had a developer come in and recommended that the majority of the 10% be in the middle of a river underwater, we might come up with a different idea than that.
Sure.
Well, certainly. I mean, yeah, certainly. But where we can agree,
We will.
I hope we will.
Yeah, absolutely.
work to agree,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, we're all
that's all. Okay.
all
I think we're-
volunteers here.
I think we're beating this one. Okay, and while I'm with you on the two-person rule, it's always good to have have somebody else there to divert attention and then, gives each person time to think of what to say.
I think it,
That's
from
good.
a process perspective, that if there's any other members of the commission that attend the presentation to the town planning and zoning, and they have a different opinion, they should either say that they're not speaking on behalf of the Conservation Commission, or, if you don't like this idea, I personally think that there are other options or something like that, but just to explain, so
Yeah.
it doesn't come across as if, a comment is intended to undermine, which is probably not the case, but just undermine what the Conservation Commission was trying to present and recommend.
Yeah, I mean, that's an important note overall. You all have to be careful, and we all should go to town meetings whenever we can and feel a need to. But has to be a recognition of when we're speaking for the commission, and the commission has asked us to do that, and when we're there for ourselves.
Right, and I think
That's
if somebody's gonna speak, on their behalf, it would be a courtesy just to let everybody know that they're gonna voice a different opinion, just so that, there's no confusion.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else to wrap up for tonight? We're gonna come back to this, of course, but Paul's gonna do the work. Okay.
So this is a brainstorming. If people have any other suggestions after thinking through it, I'd be open to other additions or revisions to it.
Kate, any last items here?
Nope, I mean, we're not voting to
Nope, nope.
on this, right?
Nope,
Okay.
we're just, have done some work, and we're gonna move on to do some work on the
It's a good plan, though. Paul,
properties
anyway.
worthy of acquisition. Thank you, Paul. In this session. All right, next on the agenda, the properties worthy of acquisition and preservation, as I put it down. I wanted to start on this. Oops, there's my sheet. Very early this morning, I sat down mostly in the dark with a bad pen and sketched out a list of reasons of why we're doing this. Because it's always helpful to know why you're undertaking something, why you're doing work, and so I thought it was only fair that we spend a few minutes and talk about why we're putting this together. So I'll just ask your indulgence as I read this. It doesn't make sense if it's early in the morning, and I could what I wrote down may be halting here. So the first comment is tonight's like the discussion we just had is not going to be the final time we visit these properties. It's just a start. We'll have other times to come back to them and modify the list. The second note is that you might notice that I'm starting to use the term properties worthy of preservation more so than properties worthy of acquisition, and that's actually a return to the way that this list of properties was titled in the past, and I think it conveys the goal here more than just acquisition. There are properties we may acquire, but there's other ways of preserving open space, preserving properties for open space, and so that even back down to 1978, if I have the date right, properties worthy of preservation was a term that was used, and I think it's a worthy term, so you may hear me using that more often. It's 1965, sorry. And as I've looked back on the open space plans back to that time frame, there's always been a list of these properties. It's been a fundamental part of the open space plan that the various conservation commissions have issued, and we will be undertaking and are undertaking a revision of the open space plan this year. And the reason we're doing that is because the open space plan becomes, in the end, can be considered for inclusion in the town's plan of conservation and development. And that is due to be redone and reissued for the years 2025 to 2035. So these it has a long life, and the properties around town that we consider, want to envision as open space for the town, have a long life within that document. And so that it's worthy of time to go through and make sure that we've thoughtfully considered what properties should be on the list. So, you know, we have talked about already what properties we need for the Greenway. These are other properties, these are properties that have historically been in the open space plans, and we're considering tonight and going forward whether they should still be there. And then we should also consider other properties that we just find maybe on the PA 490 list, maybe just because we know of other valuable spaces in town that are worth consideration. And we certainly don't want a list of 1,000 properties. It should be a targeted list that can be realistically envisioned that the town could obtain over time, but nonetheless, it should be a comprehensive list as that we develop. So that's basically why we were spending the time to go back and revisit the list, because we want it to be valid, and we want it to be the right list to present into the plan of conservation and development. Make sense to most everybody?
Makes sense.
I guess I'm
Okay.
not sure why any of these properties would come off the list if they've been on the list.
Well, we can go through and I'll identify that as we go through.
Some of
But-
them have been developed.
Some of them have been developed, thank you, Barbara. Some of them have
So
been
then they should just.
preserved, so we
If
no-
already, yes.
we no longer need to have them on the list.
But if one of us knows that, why can't we just take them off or put them on? We don't have to discuss it.
Because I think maybe none of us know the totality of it, so I thought the collective wisdom of the group, we could get through it fairly quickly. And the ones we aren't sure of, the ones we want to look at more, then let's mark those down, and we'll do a little more research and figure out if they should be on or off.
Have you distributed the list of the properties that are currently on the? You
Yeah.
have, okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask you to send that to me again?
Um,
Was that part of the agenda?
Yeah,
with-
here, I'll
was
send
the
it to you
second
right
of
now
the
in the
draft
text.
agenda.
Okay, that was with the draft agenda. Okay, I've got it then.
Okay.
I wasn't sure what that was for. Okay.
Yeah, my hope was, everybody would have a copy with them and we could talk through.
I can sit next to you and look at it together.
We can do it that
Sure.
way.
Over here.
I was gonna say, I just sent it to your phone, Paul.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Put you to work if you want.
What?
I'll put you to work if you want, if you're gonna do that. Because I'd like, in fact, I'd like a second person to do this. You have the actual list there? So we're going to, the two of you were. So Barbara, as we talk about each property, we're gonna say, yeah, it should be on or off. Can you write down on or off, or further research, just to
Terrific.
double check me, because I'm gonna do the same thing. And
Sure.
then I wanna make sure that I don't misrecord something.
So you're gonna retitle this properties worthy of preservation?
It's
You
worth a
did.
discussion.
Well, yeah, right.
Yeah, that's what.
I think that
was
makes
my
sense.
thought.
I think it makes total sense, because some of these properties will never be acquired.
Yeah,
And if our
There's-
objective is to.
yeah.
To preserve them and
property
not
as
to-
open space,
Yeah.
there's, might be more economical ways of doing it, buying a conservation easement on the property or something else. as
All kinds of
opposed to
different
buying.
things, yeah. And
Okay, so I'm on page 20 of 34 of the open space plan, which I don't, did the extract I give you got numbered?
No.
No.
Pages? No.
It's 20 Blue Hill Trail?
20 Blue Hill Trail is the first one?
It's the first
Blue-
one.
Blue Trail.
Blue Trail Drive.
20, excuse me, 20 Blue Trail Drive. That is part of the Greenway, one of the properties of the Greenway, so by default, we've already said that should be on the list. And unless someone disagrees, wants to go back to that decision. So I think we're done there,
Well, it says threatened by developmental forces.
yeah. But we're,
Planning on
It-
protecting
it
it
is.
already.
but we, last time,
It's not an imminent danger.
in constructing our list, we said any property that the Greenway passes through
Mm-hmm.
that is not already owned by the town or
The land
the land
trust,
trust,
or, yeah.
et cetera, should be part of the list,
Sure.
properties worthy of presentation.
about property that is owned by the town and is not on the list? Are there any properties that fall to that category?
Yeah,
Oh, there's
Fitzgerald.
several.
Well, yeah, there are properties that the town has, yes, that are not permanently protected. They're town managed and they're preserved
Most
in
of
that
them.
respect.
Right.
They are open
Yeah.
space, but they're not
Tho-
protected.
Those traditionally have not been
They're
on
not, yeah.
these lists.
I think
And it's
they
something
should
that
be.
we need to think about.
I
Yeah.
think that they
Definitely.
should be, 'cause I mean, if our plan is to put forward properties for the preservation.
Yes,
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So,
we should
Agreed.
get a
And-
list, which I actually have here, of all town-owned properties and
yeah, we
do
we
the
have such
exercise
a
of going
list.
through that.
We have such a list in the back of the Plan of Conservation and
Mhm.
Development. I mean, it may have changed a little bit since the last one was issued, but those are
But maybe
fairly,
that's part-
fairly easy to obtain. And, you know, I would say, you know, as I mentioned, Greenway segments, these segments, and then we're gonna move on to what else? You know, what
Well,
other, what other properties in that?
What else is that?
Yeah, what else?
That's what we'd like what else to be, right?
Yeah, what, it could be the town parcels that
Are
we'd like to see
protected.
permanent preserved, or it could be private parcels that are on PA 490, or private parcels that are just, you know, we think are, worthy of preservation because of what they
This
would
is it right
contribute to
here.
the town's open space.
Okay.
Okay, so
It has it in
we will
different
go on with that. So in the
privately
meantime,
owned,
so Diana,
publicly owned,
20 Blue Trail is
preserved.
on.
Good.
It's easy, it's an easy one.
Okay.
Turning the page, or at least for me, turning the page. 180 Ford Road. This is one.
I have 180 Ford Road, 154 Ford Road, 115 Osborne. Are they
Yep.
all together?
Well, they're
350.
They're pretty much
Raymond?
contiguous, yes.
they're
Okay.
near each other, or adjacent.
But they're owned by the same people or
No.
different people?
No, they're
So different
different
owners.
people. So, you notice that the last one in that list is 356 Rimmon Road?
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that has now been subdivided where we have the open space. So that's
So we,
no longer be on the list. The 154 Ford Road and 15 Osborne Lane, in my research, they have private houses on them now. And
so they've been developed?
they've been developed, I'm not sure, and they're, I didn't write it down, but they're relatively small parcels. I make a distinction between, a 2-acre parcel, an acre and a half that has a house on it, has little value as open space versus a 25-acre parcel that has a house in the corner, that where we could say, gee, that there's preservation value in a lot of that lot, or it's the farmhouse versus the farm, in these cases, these two, 154, 15 Osborne, those I would think there's no longer need to have them on the list.
Who's going to confirm that they've been developed?
I'm sorry, excuse me?
Who will confirm that? If
Well,
something
I
has been
think
developed?
we should confirm it, and we can
Well-
confirm it by looking at the town's GIS
The
system.
GIS,
Or can we just go to,
I actually thought that all of these were
Christina?
owned by the same person, so I didn't bother to look, cause I did look at all the rest of them.
oh, you did?
Yeah, yeah, so, I'm willing to have someone double check me. That's a good thing, so, but.
Well, Chris
so-
Sullivan would know too. We could just ask her.
Perhaps. But,
I
on the
can check.
GIS system, you can go up and you
It's
can,
very easy.
you
yeah.
can see
Just,
You
the
just
size,
click on
practically
it.
look in the
the
windows.
size of the
Okay.
land, you can see
Yeah, I know.
the configuration, you can see, and then what else is around it and say, well, in some cases, having even a small parcel next to a bigger parcel, it's a good thing. If you can get that, it makes the parcel bigger, so it's worthwhile. So these are the, that's the type of decision. So I don't know, if we want to sort of double, maybe tonight I can give you my comments, and then we can split this up, and if you want, we can each take a little bit and verify it and come back and wrap it up next week. Is that a better path? If we're, so in 180, to me, was still worth on the list because it was a larger lot. So if we want to divide these up, do we want to just sort of ask someone to take each grouping as we go along? Or somebody want to volunteer to do one grouping, or this?
I'll check those other two.
Okay, so this is Barbara. All right, so the next grouping is the 141 blah 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 to 165 Peck Hill Road.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that one.
Okay, so I'll give you my just
165 has been developed, 157 has been developed, the other four have not.
exactly what I got. I'm not sure then, so
I mean, they have
therefore.
big houses on them, so they are developed.
Yeah, my take was we drop 157 and 165 and we
Mhm.
keep the others.
Is that the Arnold Peck development?
Pardon?
Is that the houses that Arnold Peck built?
In front of it,
Yeah,
the two houses that are in front of the
Yeah.
old,
yeah. Is that sort of your take on that, Barbara?
what?
That we keep the first four on the list and drop
Yeah,
the
we
last
can,
two?
they're owned by a developer already, so they're probably gonna go. They're all owned by the
Yeah.
same developer who's done the first two houses. So, although, no, they aren't, I take that back, there's
Yeah,
one private person at least there, but most of them are.
okay. Yeah, Kate, why don't you take a look, see what you think about keeping those or not? My sense is there's a, yeah, my note I wrote down where they're being developed. All right, next two are 37 North Pease and 17 Woodbine. And I had a split decision on these.
They're both owned by the same person, whom I've never heard of.
Yeah, the first one, the lot is vacant. The second one has a house on it.
Hmm.
Sharon, you want to look at these two?
I'm not, why don't you assign it to someone else? I'm not really thinking this process is working so well for me.
You want to just
Sure.
pop and look at those two?
Are we looking at them simply to
Yeah, just
know
to.
whether they're
to-
developed or not?
Yeah, just to verify that, and,
I mean,
and,
is this just easy enough for one person to just take the list
Just-
and verify all the GIS instead of splitting it up?
Right.
yeah.
Is that
Well,
easy enough?
I did it once.
Okay.
It's just, it's double checking me probably. But, at the end, I want this to be everybody's list. So I want you to have some feeling for,
And so we
for
know
some
this
of the list.
this list goes back to 2020, so January 2020. So we've got
Yeah, it goes back probably
about.
Oh, I'm sure it goes back
Decades.
further, but most
Yeah.
recently was,
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Updated.
but if you read the verbiage, it says, this list is as a carryover.
sure. Sure, no, I just meant the
Yeah.
last time these
Yeah.
properties were checked were,
Well, that's what I'm saying.
okay.
It's a carryover. It says it's a carryover. I'm not sure any real, deep dig dive was done.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. 902 Baldwin Road is a protected farm
It's
in my.
done, yes.
Yep, so that's off the list.
So I thought.
145 Beecher Road,
It's a farm.
it's a farm.
Mhm.
So my sense was we keep
Farm?
that
Who's
on,
Fellows.
Fellows farm right next to
That's,
you.
that's,
It's
oh,
Terry's.
that's 145.
It's Terry's, yeah.
I didn't know it was 145.
yeah. Now, farms are interesting.
It's not protected though.
They're not
Right,
protected.
exactly, that was the point I was gonna get to. So that's why I think it's still worthy to be on the list.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
I
Okay,
I
so
think any
we're,
farm in town that remains a farm, or even
unless
it's
it's,
not a farm, but it's still open space, it's still one contiguous piece, I think is definitely worthy of
Especially that location too.
preservation. And that location is, yeah,
yeah, unless it's,
except for these little things that are stuck right on the corner there.
Yeah. Maybe we should get rid of those.
all right, the next parcel is 1010 Racebrook Road. It's, part of the
Parcel.
private golf course over there,
It's part of the Baldwin
so I
property.
think we still want it on the list.
Yes,
All right,
that goes almost over to Greenway Road, by the way,
yes, it does, yeah,
that property.
Oh, I didn't know it went back that far.
yeah.
There's a section, it's funny, it's
Right
a
along the
section
parkway.
that goes, no, it's not along the parkway, it's inside a little bit.
The actual golf course, you can't see from Racebrook Road. Those are practice holes.
No, that's a different golf course.
No?
One by the Evangelical Church, by the Adventist, that's
The
a separate
Lutheran-
three-hole
Lutheran,
golf
no.
course, it's not the,
What is it?
it's a par
Mormon
three.
church.
by
The
the
par
Mormon
three,
Church.
that's
But
what I
that's
thought
not
this
part
was.
of, it's not part of
Used to be
Racebrook.
called Cosmos Golf Course.
No,
It's
but-
owned by two different people.
Homewood Acres, that one?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean, Tim? They're not,
Homeward Acres. I thought 1010 Racebrook Road was Homeward Acres.
It is.
And so that's
It's
the one I'm
Baldwins.
saying. You can't see the
Across the
actual
street
golf
from the
course from the
Baldwins.
road.
Well, it
You
is,
see a
yeah.
couple
But
of
they
golf
own the
holes.
property.
They own the property.
Yeah.
wait, I'm confused.
Yep.
Are you saying that little three-hole, is this place 110, 1010? Okay.
Yes.
And the next grouping is 1156 Racebrook Road, 1130 and 25 Northrop.
And that is all owned by the same person.
Yes.
And it's definitely worthy of preservation.
Yes.
to me.
And that was my assessment of it. They're large, open, undeveloped tracts, so.
And does that abut on the back, Massaro Farm?
No, it's on the
Okay.
other side of Northrop. It's
Okay.
between Northrop and Racebrook.
Got it.
It's in shouting distance, some of it.
Oh, it's in shouting distance of the
So
the development,
yeah,
the subdivision,
yeah.
actually,
Okay.
across the street
Um,
from it.
The next section I have is regional authority land, and I put this in my note, I didn't think these were worth putting on the list, as the regional authority land has good preservation and protection now. There are rigorous processes, and town has first rights of refusal if the oil company ever wants to sell the land, so.
I don't think it hurts to have it on if our
No.
objective is not acquisition but preservation. It would be, probably make sense to.
I think it is worthy of
Yeah,
preservation.
Yeah.
to communicate to
it-
somebody 5 years from now that
It's
reads
just that
it.
it's not in
Yeah.
immediate danger of
Right,
development, I would say.
Yeah,
Not
we're
in-
not thinking of buying it, we just wanna keep it the way it is.
in case something
But-
changes, like the
but
water
that-
company decides to try to
I mean-
sell it or something.
That's true of all properties that are open space and protected. You want them preserved. To
But
me,
this is
these are
less-
protected.
But this is less protected.
It's, less than if you have
What's the harm in keeping it on?
nothing, just to keep the list focused to those properties that,
Well,
I
we
don't think
could
it would
make
hurt to have
need
it on, and the
action.
reason I say it might be a good idea to keep it on is
Yeah.
in the event, the property, the water company does to decide to start the process to
Yeah.
do something different with the property.
yeah,
You know,
Okay.
the Board of Selectmen could see that that was a property that had been identified in the plan of conservation and development to be preserved.
okay. People, everybody else, okay leaving it on?
Mhm.
You have to think that somebody that reads this plan in 10 years might not be any of us.
Absolutely. Okay, so now down to 2 Acorn Hill, where I wrote down there's a private house.
It,
uh,
again, it's a farm,
And it's a farm, so it belongs on the list.
and it's got a piece of it that has already been given to the trust, but it's way in back.
Hmm.
Near Seymour. It's not, well, all of it's near Seymour, but it's closer to Seymour than the rest of it.
Okay. 10 Warren Road is part of the expanded greenway, so that will stay on.
It's,
It's Knowles Pond,
oh,
that's what it is. And some little surrounding land. Next is 1875 Litchfield Turnpike. And this, I believe, is part of the greenway also. I didn't write that down.
it even says it.
Extends the greenway, yeah. 357 Rimmer Road, that's a regional water authority, so we said we wanted to keep those on. 655 Amity Road. It has a house on it. It's, this is one to look at. The way this house property is, the likelihood of development is really low.
How big of a
The
piece of
likelihood
property is
of
it?
development, low,
34 acres?
I believe it would be low of subdivision,
extremely low, yes.
yeah.
Why do you
Where
say
is
that,
it?
Barbara? Why would it be low? There's only one house on 34 acres, it seems like. I don't know what it looks like, so
Paul,
It's
I think I,
a gorgeous piece of property. It's absolutely beautiful.
is it?
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Where is it?
It is
Well,
in the
you-
furthest reaches of Woodbridge.
just before you get to
go,
Bethany, over on the right hand
Turn
side.
over,
Yeah.
turn off on Old Mill Road, is it? I think it is. Which actually ends up on the lake if you walk through. But then you turn on, and it's a dead end, and you turn the only way you can off of Old Mill. It's not Old Mill Road, what's the name of
Yeah,
it?
I don't.
It's right near Ladder Creek, the road you,
Right.
the road you turn
Right
Oh,
before.
right.
and you go up, 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 up.
I don't
It's
think
So
owned
I've
by
what
ever-
one
about-
person who, or a family, who,
On the right hand side, right, the house that's way back.
Is that the,
it's the end of that road.
Okay.
is that the Calabrese property?
It abuts the Calabrese
Well,
property.
the Calabrese property should be on here too.
It is.
Oh, it is, that's
It's
the next one?
one.
Oh, okay.
It's the next one.
Well, we should
And
talk to
it does
them.
abut the Calabrese property.
I think
And
they'd be interesting to talk to about it, because they're so into preservation and land.
the Calabrese.
Yeah.
I think they,
It'd be
I don't
interesting
think
to
there's
see
too
what their
much-
plan is.
too much, actually from the ownership that I saw on the GIS map, it belongs to their
Children?
children.
Oh, so maybe it isn't preserved.
Yeah.
So
So-
I don't know what their attitude are.
Paul, you want to take a look on the GIS at 655 and see what you think?
Okay.
Yeah,
The owner is very, very preservation minded.
Is he?
Extremely. Used to be on the trust for years.
Who is it? Can you say?
I'm not gonna say.
Okay.
and should we, in 639, it's a farm, then,
Well, yeah,
It's a
It's the
farm.
Calabrese's we're talking about,
So that should be
yeah. Yes.
a yes. Yeah.
Definitely, it's kind of
Okay.
great.
I mean,
And it abuts a lot of other land.
it's 75 acres of property combined there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's a nice
Um,
portion.
I had a question about the last one, 81 Pease Road.
Oh. Not the last one we did, the last one on the list, thank you.
Yeah, the last
Yeah,
one on the
I
list.
am. Going the wrong way.
I couldn't even find it on the GIS.
81 Pease Road.
It's a
Oh, is that the?
Eversource property.
Isn't it the? Could it be where the power lines are?
It
Yes,
could be.
yes, it
I
is.
mean, that's probably what it is.
Yes.
Because
it
it
It's
is owned
the
by
high power
Eversource.
lines. This is.
Yeah.
I just didn't match into it.
Yeah. So, again, I see it
It's the
unlike,
same as,
I see it unlike, it's developed, it has a use for the high power lines. It's unlikely to be subdivided, because I don't think they're gonna be moving those lines.
No.
So I don't
So
think
there's
this
really
one
only about
belongs
8
in.
or 10 that are really worth really going for.
Yeah,
The question
maybe,
is to
maybe a
look
couple
at to see
more
how
after we
many-
do a little research, yeah.
how many
Yeah, I mean,
more places there are
from,
around.
from the old list, and that's, that's things change, and I think this list has been propagated over a lot of years.
But it
Um,
isn't common that things become open space.
No, we want to identify the ones that are really worth going after.
Maybe we can think about all these and to make a priority list.
Yeah, yep. Okay, so we'll get back together on people's research after next time. It shouldn't-
Is that the entire list?
Yeah, that's this list, yeah.
What about property like the Fitzgerald property and the Country Club of Woodbridge property?
But those are town-owned.
That's what we're
You
talking
gotta
about.
make a
That's the
separate
next
list
And
of the town-owned.
I was gonna do
properties.
that as another session,
Okay.
maybe next time, and so let's tee
This
that up.
Oh,
Well, we have at least two things to do, more, after we just, finalize this list. One is to look at the PA 490 list, which everyone should
Barbara
have
has.
a copy of. That those are gonna be, those are properties that are owned by individuals, but they have enough acreage to fit the guidelines of getting PA 490 recognition, and have a certain amount of open space, or,
Is there a number
A
of
certain amount of
acres that they
farmland.
have to be before they can get that designation?
Yes,
yeah, and I'm struggling to call exactly what that is. It's I think it's, I don't know if it's stated as a number of acres or more than the zoning, what you need for a buildable lot. But basically, I think if I say it's more than 2 acres, it's probably gets you in the ballpark.
Okay.
Um,
So if a lot
th-
qualified as a building lot, then it would probably also qualify as a PA 490?
No, I mean, it's, the
Some of
assessor
the-
makes some of the determination about how much of it is, the lot is open space. So they look at the layout of the house and any outbuildings, and then say how much is gonna be applicable to open space. But it has to be, I believe it has to be more than the zoning of what's the, the 2 acre minimum or the 1.5 acre minimum.
Okay.
I think it.
I think it's an 1.5 acre because I remember looking, and most of the entries on the PA 490 list, when I look at how much is open space, it's that amount plus 1.5 for 1.5 acres buildable lot. So I'll say 1.5 has to be more than that.
Okay.
Now, I don't see a lot of 2 acre ones on there with half an acre open space. That doesn't make sense, but when you look at the list. So I was saying, so we'll go through that I think I'm gonna ask each of you to go through that list and see if there's anything worth on that list, because those are, for the most part, all private houses. And, I don't know, how valuable some of those are as worthy of preservation as open space, even the back acres. On large parcels, maybe yes. And then the second one is, as we could phrase as what else in town? And you've identified perhaps some of the town-owned land that's not protected is worthy of preservation, and we can talk about those on the list. And there may be other parcels that you just drive around and you say, boy, it'd be nice, to have that land would be a valuable contribution to open space. And it might be, somebody's back acreage, it's not on PA 490, and if we know about it, it may be worth targeting. And target implies the wrong thing, but maybe worth preserving for the town as open space in some way.
Thank you.
So, thank you, it's what I wanted to accomplish tonight, and we'll come back to that. So moving along, and I think we're down to item number 7, updates as needed on some of our initiatives. And so I'm going to ask Paul or Kate or anybody listed there, Barbara, if any updates that you'd like to give the commission on these items?
So the working group was myself, Barbara, and Diane. So, did you want to give the update on it?
You can go right.
Okay. So, we met, was it last week? Last week, right? We met last week to see if we could outline what our objectives would be for tree regulation as a starting point. And so we brainstormed several objectives for a tree regulation. I'll just read through them because I don't think everybody has copies of this. This was just circulated within the group. But number 1 was prevent the negative environmental and quality of life consequences of clear cutting. 2, protect significant trees over a certain diameter. 3, protect native species of trees. 4, maintain a minimum canopy over cover on a parcel within a subdivision. 5, minimize a development's contribution to climate change. And 6, reduce soil erosion. So those were some of the high-level things that we thought would be, if we were going to start to outline what a regulation would include, that they would address those points. And that was our brainstorming list, and our hope was other people might have some other ideas to contribute to it.
Yeah, we have another community that we reached out to. They have a draft tree ordinance that they're getting ready to, I don't want to say pass, but discuss with their group. So we're just waiting on that to come over to
Great.
give us another example of
Yeah.
what community in Connecticut is doing.
Okay. No, that sounds like a great list.
Yeah, and we're finding out more and more that more and more towns are becoming more and more strict about their trees. And their vegetation, as a matter of fact.
Mhm.
Diana found, is it Ridgefield?
Yeah.
Ridgefield has just enacted an ordinance demanding native species only. So,
Wow.
I think it's on town property, for plantings, shrubs.
Thank you, Kate. You have a good evening.
Behind you
Night.
in 5 minutes, Kate.
Okay. Well,
so-
I would recommend we just kind of bookmark those, or so that when we get ready to go to the Board of Selectmen, you have some background
Absolutely.
information.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good. Any other updates?
Oh, it's a nice list.
Okay. Barbara, I assume at some point this year we'll start with the Historical Society?
It is on the agenda for next Thursday, to see
Wonderful.
what's going on,
Okay.
to see
All right.
who will participate in
Yeah,
doing this.
yeah, just
Yes.
to refresh people's memory on what we might want to try to do. Excellent. Item number 8,
So that's to identify historical sites along the Greenway, is that what that is? Okay.
Yes, the trails in Greenway.
And then eventually bring that information into the Greenway maps.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Right.
Some
I
fundamental
knew what you
way.
meant, but I didn't think anybody else
Yeah,
that wasn't familiar with the discussion might.
And
Okay.
hopefully, I think to
thank you, Paul.
acquire some signage.
Yeah.
So that people can recognize, because sometimes it's a rock.
Right.
I just was down in Saybrook Point, and they have a place where there was an old trolley yard where trains were switched, and there was an old Indian site and there was quite, and it was a lot of nice signage that really was historic and quite informative, and we could probably take
Good.
hint
I
from
think your
Yeah,
suggestion of
exactly.
having like a QR code
Should.
at that point along the trail would be interesting, as people could go along and
Yeah.
just, point their phone to it and see what the significance of it was.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
true.
On item number 8, I have no updates on those 2 items. I have one other item to comment on, but if anybody has any information on those 2, we'll take those
I
comments.
saw today, I think, a for sale sign on 124. I thought that the bankruptcy was supposed to happen in January,
28th, I believe.
28th of January. They never got back to me, by the way,
Okay.
in any way, shape, or form. So I have
I
given
mean,
up.
it has been for sale. I don't know if there's a different broker now or agent, and they put up
Right.
a different sign, but I haven't seen, it was only a few days ago that I went and checked if there was any additional legal action there, and there was not.
On Merritt Avenue, there's a follow-up TP&Z meeting, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
there is.
When is
Is
that?
it February 6th is the next meeting? And it's a
Sounds like that would be the
and
right
it's a
date.
continuation of the public hearing also.
Right.
So, it sounded like that, John Paul Garcia was gonna come up with a new suggestion for what the open space would be.
I think we should have some representation there.
I think we should too.
Are we gonna be able to see what the recommendation is for open space beforehand?
That's a good question.
That's a good
It's
question.
an interesting point of
It would be nice to know what that was.
What happens in a situation like
I mean, I think it would be constructive to know what it was, so perhaps he might have an idea that would be something we could get behind or something we might suggest that he tweak.
Going back to one of the earlier topics on the agenda, we were asking for a notification of subdivisions. So I guess as applications evolve and more documentation
You
is
need more.
created, we should also make sure that we have a process to get that, so we stay up to date on that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So I don't know what he's gonna suggest. It would be good to, I don't know, Tim, if you wanna reach out to him and ask him if he could share what his new proposal's gonna be. We obviously recommended what we had, passed in our motion. I don't know what variation he's gonna make on that or do something entirely different, but
I can reach out and ask him if he's made an update and if he would change and send that to us. And
Right.
I would forward that on to everyone.
it'd be good if just a comment, it'd be good if the planning and zoning became familiar with the subdivision regulations themselves, because they seem to not know what they include and not include.
I concur.
So, I mean, it should have public access, it should have access to a public street, I should say. It should also, be representative of the parcel being developed, and they seem to not know these points, so.
Agreed. The one other comment I have that may be of interest to people, The Connecticut Land Conservation Council is an organization that I somehow got put on the mailing list of, and suddenly started appearing in my mailbox. And one of their upcoming events is running I'll call it a seminar. I know that they call it a seminar. Let me see what they do call it. Excuse me. A summit on housing and conservation on February 1st from 9 to 3:30 in Hartford, the Lyceum. And that is they're advertising it as a way for people who are interested in more housing in towns to get together with people who are interested in preservation of open space and find ways of accomplishing both within the towns. So they have a number of speakers.
Have you mentioned?
So the objective is to target open space for development of housing? Is that?
Well, their objective, let me see if they state an objective. I mean, their lead is, while land conservation and affordable housing are often pitted against one another as an either-or proposition, the reality is that Connecticut communities need both. They're inviting CLSC and our partners invite you to a full-day exploration of how housing and conservation groups can work together to achieve a greater good. So they're trying to bridge the gap between two groups that can be at loggerheads in terms of land use in towns.
Does anyone in our administration of the Woodbridge town know about this and would be interested in it, like Tony Genovese or Beth or anybody like that?
I don't know.
Could we
I-
forward it on to them?
We can,
Or to Chris Sullivan at least, so she,
I did forward this on as an individual to Kathy Hunter, the head of the housing.
I think
Committee?
I frankly think the premise that, open space, land that's being preserved should be somehow targeted for housing development is kind of
No.
perverse to start with. I mean, if somebody wants to develop housing, why would you target land that was open space? You
well,
could
that's
plan
just
that
what people
land,
have been doing in
It's
Woodbridge.
easy to develop, I guess. You
it's,
know,
it's
it's
the low hanging fruit.
Yeah, low hanging fruit. It's
Yeah.
it's nothing there that I have to take down or change or move people out or move a business someplace else. It's easier, and that's and so how do you get around that? And I would assume that the Connecticut Land Conservation Council is going to be suggesting to people who are in favor of affordable housing. There's other ways to approach this. I think I don't know. So, I think I don't know that anybody in the administration itself, I don't know if they'd be interested in this or not. I would hope that the housing committee would be interested in it. And I get a note today that they are gonna send one person.
I was gonna say
Person is
they
gonna go.
apparently are interested in it because they told me about it already.
Okay. And for what purpose? To ask you to go or to?
No, because you had spoken to them, they asked me about it, and I had to say I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, no, I as I said, it's just something I was aware of, and I thought that the housing committee in town should be aware of it.
Yeah, good point.
Hmm?
Yeah, I agree.
Now, you know, I don't know if, you know, my thinking that they should be aware of it is that it would be good for them to work with some of the land conservation organizations in town to, because I think there is potential to be at loggerheads, and they should try to figure out how to work collaboratively and get the housing done and also fulfill the preservation of open space. So, but I don't know how they're looking at it. I didn't hear back from them in detail except just a note from a person looking for a ride there. And that's how I found out they were going to go send someone. But it's a good step. Okay. I failed to attach the minutes to the emails for the meeting, so we will postpone.
I wondered whether I
That-
was the only person
No,
who hadn't
no,
seen the
I-
minutes.
I,
Because I looked all over.
so my mistake, and we'll postpone that item for next time. And with that, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And without opposition
All
or
in
dissent,
favor?
we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.